I barely saw him going up to get them.
Those watching the video can vicariously enjoy the donuts that Gary brought today.
Okay, cool. So I'm still in school, so I'm doing my master's in computer science and cybersecurity. So as part of my thesis, I had to solve a problem pretty much, right? So I like building things. So what I thought about doing that would be cool is just creating like a sensor that you can take to the field, and then it will like monitor like humidity, temperature, UV light, like regular light, and then just give you some like analytics based on that.
I just wanted to show the sensor.
So is this a Raspberry Pi?
Yep, it's a Raspberry Pi Zero. So there we go. So on the
It's not on the screen.
Okay. So it's pretty much at this point it's a Raspberry Pi Zero. It has like a header on top, and then I saw like a bunch of components on top of it. So and then this is kind of how it works. Just give me 1 second. It got disconnected when I moved it, so it restarted.
So what code did you use to make this?
It's running Python. So it's raspbian operating systems, basic stuff, and then it's I use Python. Python 3.
Yeah, that's when I started learning this year.
Yep. So So simple Python script like gets the data. So right now it's like 0 UV, low moisture, humidity is 26%, temperature 23 degrees, and then this is like the light. So I'm having troubles with the light sensor at this point. Like it's not working very well, and it's still need to calibrate it a little bit because when you like cover the device, like it doesn't change like a whole lot, if anything at all. So I'm still having some troubles with that. But I think like the cool part of this is that, okay, so you have this data, and then I also create a website, right? So this is not live right now, but what it does is the sensor pushes the data to the cloud, and then the website just grabs all the data and does some analytics on it. So this is pretty much kind of what you will get. So yeah, so you get like temperature, the humidity, the UV, and then the light, and based on this you can do some like analytics, and then just you can learn more about, I guess, what's going on in the field. Yeah, you can add like devices to your, like each person can have multiple devices and stuff like that. Pretty.
Was that real data?
Yeah, so this was generated on the fly because right now the Pi is not connected to the internet.
Sure.
But yeah, I can pull it from the cloud in real time.
Is that over the course of multiple days? Like the blacks bunch of read?
Yes. So right now, yes, I think it's March 2nd, and then this is March same day. I'm sorry?
Do you have a download for this yet?
No, at this point, no, this is just like the very first prototype.
Okay.
The idea is, at this point, to just use the website. So
Yeah.
making an app is kind of takes a while, and I'm just like one guy working on this. So eventually I do want to create some sort of app for this, but at this point, it's actually live. If you go to like, this website, like, there's actually like a login stuff, you log in, and then you see this. Yep. So
That's cool.
Now, when you put those sensors around, right? How do they connect back out, or do you have a cellular module on it or something, or?
So this version does not. I have one that does. So the problem with having like the LTE like enabled device is that it consumes more power. So like this device, the Raspberry Pi Zero, uses like 80 milliamps, and right now I'm running some tests to determine how much power it uses per hour and stuff like that. But when you add the LTE module, it draws more like current. So right now, if you look at what it brought, I have a battery. So this guy will use that battery in about like 5-7 days. But if you add the LTE module, it reduces the time, I guess. It reduces the amount that it can be by itself on the field.
Yeah.
So
Here's another idea, like a solar panel.
because of battery. Yeah.
Does it go like from 5 to 7 days down to a day, or like?
I'm still running tests on it because even if you do have the LT module enabled, you don't have to enable it all the time. So you can just enable it for like 5 minutes to push all your data every hour or things like that. So I'm still like trying to like play with those parameters to see what would be like the optimal for LT use, and then I can do some comparison.
So here's an option, like I guess you could think about putting like a solar panel to it.
Yes, actually I have ordered 2 solar panels. So right now the device is like 6 centimeters by like 3 centimeters. So I brought a couple of solar panels. So right now I'm building the case. I'm gonna 3D print the case and put a solar panel here, solar panel here, and then see for how much extra battery.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Hopefully I'll have that by next week.
Have you heard of Node-RED? So Node-RED, it's for like IoT devices, and it allows you to build interfaces as well. So you could have workflow. You can have the workflow. You could pull information from like a Raspberry Pi, or if you have other, like I use it with the home automation stuff. I also have sensors. I have wireless sensors around the house for temperature and humidity. And with Node-RED, I was able to pull in the information because it has a pretty cool API that you could have a lot of devices attached to it, including Pis.
Because for this project, I had to build my own like REST API.
Oh, you have to do your own.
In here, I did it myself.
With code, okay. I see.
So right now, the device, like makes a post request to the server, and then push the data, like get requests.
Gotcha.
So I had to code that by myself.
That's interesting.
But I didn't know that I could use something like that. Yep. So this is my project.
Cool.
Yep. Cool. Any questions? Comments?
I'm just curious, like, it's very sinusoidal.
Yeah. So this is not real data. It's just like a sign.
That's where you have to throw like.
Yeah.
That's like really. I want to know what the data is. What's going on scientifically.
Yeah. No. And this is I think like a sine times cosine, or sine times tangent.
Okay.
It gave me this. Yeah. So it's not real data. Yeah.
I had the same thought.
Yeah.
Is that like nighttime? It gets like really dry or something?
That's kind of what I was trying to do. So like the humidity, I'm assuming is going to go up and down depending on the time of the day. So
Yeah. You'll certainly get the light fluctuation.
Right.
Are these chargers free to use? Because my Raspberry Pi I think it died.
I think those are for equipment for the company that runs here.
Oh.
So probably equipment work for that anyway, I guess.
cool. Good.
Okay,
Good.
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 Let's see, who's next? Matt, would you like to be next?
Sure.
It took me a while to come up with the sudo shutdown command. I'm like, sudo shutdown. And then I didn't realize you could just do it as simple as now.
Yeah.
If,
I looked up
if you
the-
have,
Oh, no.
maybe it might be good to, people could bring their, if you have a device, just hold it up in front of the camera
Oh, okay.
beforehand,
You
so
can
people
always do
can see
like
what it is.
the name of the command, like minus H,
Just jacked in.
and then I'll get you at least full options.
Now, yeah, there's power there if you
Or you can
need
do
it to.
command, and then you
I think power off works too.
Oh, this
Sudo
is.
power off, so you don't worry about.
That is the
there
device
a
in there.
spot
Wow.
that I can just charge it, that I can, I don't have to use my battery on here, but is there a spot that I can run it?
There should be a
There's a power strip.
Yeah, power strip's right here.
There's a power strip right here.
and there's one up there too.
This
There's
is where
one-
you might want to, let's see, if that's up on, no, that's not,
There's another one in
Alright.
front.
Yeah.
You have a turning gear?
So I will get to the stuff in a minute.
bring it up in the front of the, you can come look on my screen to see if you can see what it's gonna look like.
Yeah, so this device, about the size of a quarter. You can see my hand there. I don't know if it's going to focus very well, but it's a circuit board. It's blurry on the camera, but that's okay.
I could change
Nah,
it.
don't worry about
Okay.
it. It's if you've seen a circuit board before, or a breadboard, or not a breadboard, but if you've seen circuit boards, you've seen what this looks like. But it's circular. I got this at PyCon 2018. They were giving it out in a swag bag. But if you are interested in one of these later, this device is called the Gemma M0. and it's available on Adafruit for $10. So very affordable in the scheme of like hardware. But so why would you even want one of these? The reason they were giving these out with PyCon is because on this device, what you program with is not C. This is not like Arduino C++. This is actually coming, it comes with, well, it's technically CircuitPython, but CircuitPython is Adafruit's branch of MicroPython. And MicroPython is essentially Python designed for embedded devices. So you can get access to, I think you can even like, you can write, this is how crazy it gets, you can write a Python function that will run every time there is an interrupt, like a OS interrupt, which is pretty low level if you really think about it. So MicroPython is, you know, not got every feature of full-fledged Python, naturally, if you think about how small it has to be. But it gives you the ability to write Python rather than C. I mean, you might prefer C, I don't know, but like I think that Python is a lot more approachable to newcomers into hardware hacking, that kind of stuff. So anything that kind of lowers the barrier is pretty cool. So the way this works is so I did show it when it was on the camera. It's just connected. This is a mini USB port on it, and
just like many phones, I guess.
Yeah, it's the same size that comes on a lot of phones. Although I guess some of those are switching to USB-C. You plug it into your computer, and what will happen is it will show up as a drive on your machine. And it's kind of small. I don't know that I can actually blow up Finder. Does Finder get bigger? Well, it doesn't really matter that much. But this is Finder. It looks like an external drive. And the main thing that you have here is this main.py file. And I'll open that with VS Code or something. And we'll blow it up. Wow, VS Code is not like being blown up very much.
You can always do full screen.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the font big enough. Can y'all see that, or does that need to go a little bigger still?
I can see.
Yeah.
Okay. So, here's what's super cool about this. Like, if you work with Arduino, you kind of have to compile your code, and then you have to run a command from the Arduino IDE to like actually push out your code to the device, right? So it'll run. This device, or the way this system works, is if you are hooked in with the mounted drive, if you modify this main.py file and save it, it will automatically be pushed to the Gemma M0.
Oh, you eliminate the upload step for the Arduino.
Totally eliminate the upload step. So I'm going to try and do a little demonstration here. I don't know how well it would work. Can you guys?
Do you need somebody to hold that?
No. Can y'all see this little light on here? Very dim.
Red and green. It looks like it's alternating
back and forth a little bit, right? All right. Well, that is a dot star RGB. It's a programmable pixel, and in the device, this is Python code, and you create an instance of the dot star, and I should say Adafruit gave you this starter script that kind of has all this stuff pre-wired, so you don't have to figure this out for yourself the first time. You buy the device, and this main py file gets you started, so you don't have to think about a lot of this stuff to get going.
So does the device, like, do you put an SD card into it, or?
No, it's all resident. It's onboard memory. So it has, I think the specs on the site, there's like 256 kilobytes of code space of flash memory. There's 232 kilobytes of RAM. It's a 48 megahertz 32-bit processor. So there's a lot of power on here for this little guy. So what you do in your editor is you can modify it. So I've got the dot star pixel right here, and what I want you to hopefully see is I'm going to change the brightness from 0.1. I deliberately set it really low last night so that it would be kind of dim. And we're going to change it to 0.9, and hopefully
Yeah.
that
You
works.
can definitely see the difference.
A lot
Yeah.
brighter. So I think that's awesome. I think it makes hardware programming very accessible to newcomers and very experienced
So
people.
is it basically a light experiment? With
Well, that's the
Can
light
you-
is one thing that you can do on here. That's a very good question. So there are a bunch of there are places for alligator clips. That's what these hole pins around are on there, and some of them, with one of them, this one. Okay, if I touch this one, you can see it's capacitive too. So right now it's programmed. There's a little red LED down here. So when I put my finger on it, I guess I can do this for the camera maybe. When I put my finger on it, the capacitive clip here is activating that red LED. So I think this is what they pitch it as on the Adafruit site. Is this is designed for integrating with like wearables. So if you want to have like a fun Halloween costume and you need something quick to program, you hook up your alligator clips to conductive wires for your material for your clothes. You can do that. Don't know if they have, if these are, these might be unrelated products, but so you're given, what was it? Well, it was on the specs. It tells you the kinds of connectivity too. So there's that dot star LED that we just talked about. There's some analog outputs. There's pulse width modulation outputs for servos. There's capacitive stuff. There's a little place for a battery. So if you don't want to be hooked into your USB.
It's almost very similar to the GPIO pins on a Pi in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's there's not a ton of places to connect to, but it's not meant to be like your end all be all device. This is not gonna replace your Raspberry Pi and do your bigger solar projects or your sensor measurements. But I think it was the reason why I wanted to show it off is that it's just a cool little. I mean, it's the size of a quarter, and it's not very expensive, and it comes with Python that you can run.
Yeah, it's the size of a quarter, but it's a couple more quarters to get through.
Sure, yeah, that's true. That's a good way to look at it. So that's really all I have to say about it. I don't have a ton of experience with it, honestly. I got it as a thing in my swag bag at PyCon, and I haven't really had the chance to use it except to play with it and show off that LED, because I don't really have any projects for it myself. But if you're like, I really want to make shoes that glow, or I don't know, you could end up using something like that.
So yeah, basically it's something to help people learn a little bit more code or something like that.
That's one way you could look at it. Yeah. Totally.
That's awesome.
So that's what I have to show off. And check out MicroPython. It's pretty neat. It's very
It makes
robust.
its adaptability a lot more reachable for a much larger audience when you're doing that.
Yeah, and so if you learn MicroPython by one of these guys, and then you decide, I want to get more into this, MicroPython itself has their own board, which is more to the level of Raspberry Pi, but you can see all the pins output on that. There's a lot more programmability on this device, but I think it's still, I don't remember the dimensions, but I don't see it listed here either exactly, but it's pretty small.
For the home automation projects that I worked, I used the ESP8266 board, which is an Arduino compatible board.
Okay.
And I just looked it up. I could actually use the MicroPython for it.
Oh, really?
Instead, because I was using the Arduino IDE to get the code and then push it in there, and if I could totally bypass it, it's just
And if C++
fantastic.
is not your thing, like
It's not.
it's
I use
you
the
can
copy paste.
C++ is not a very forgiving
Yeah,
language
no,
to
I
make
love
mistakes.
Python.
So
Python's awesome.
yeah, check it out
Or use Rust.
or use Rust.
But that doesn't make any sense. Why would you want to use something Rust? Well, I'll just
What is Rust? I don't know what
Rust is a programming language developed by Mozilla. It is a modern replacement for C.
Okay.
Basically, it has some really interesting memory management functionality, so that you know, the common foot gun with the C language is memory allocation problems, like when you double free or reference a null pointer, that kind of stuff.
And
Rust.
they do it without garbage collection, so
They do-
there's a memory
yeah.
ownership model.
Right.
I think I'm just gonna stick to Python. And
Python's a good
That's a good
first
JavaScript.
language to stick with.
Matt would vote for Python.
Hey, I'm learning Rust too, so I'm right there with Matthew.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit heavy for people new to programming.
Very cool.
So that's CircuitPy. That's the Gemma M0. If you're trying to remember the name later, although I can probably share that on Slack, so that if you forget it, you can find it. Okay.
Very cool. Thanks.
Sure thing.
Patrick, would you want to log into your thing? Patrick didn't bring a Pi with him, but what he's going to show is what he gathered with a Raspberry Pi. And so details.
To have a, actually, no, that'll work.
Do you,
Nope, this will work.
you're good?
Cool. I like.
If you need lightning, I can't do that. I don't have
I haven't gotten like Arduino, so I'm like, I don't know what I know. Because a whole lot of like just.
I actually have a lightning one charging my iPad at home. I could probably go into the USB connection into the projector. I've never done that, so I don't know whether it would work. Supposed to, I guess.
Anyone bring an adapter, like SD card adapter? I need to edit a format. Like if I were to show you guys my Raspberry Pi security camera, I need to like put in like the Wi-Fi and stuff. So
What kind of adapter do you need?
SD card adapter. I don't need it, but
No, not with me.
You said SD card or micro SD?
a micro SD card.
Have neither with me. Oh.
I just need like if there's a Wi-Fi and the Wi-Fi password, I can put that in.
We have that here. Yes, you can get a, by the way, the Wi-Fi login is still up there on the board. So if you need to get online, it's up there.
So the micro SD to use.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Patrick, you've described your project and what
Yeah.
we're looking at.
So I actually started this back in probably around this time last year. But I really got into software-defined radios, and I discovered that there was a really easy way to pick up all the aircraft that fly overhead. They all broadcast what's called ADS-B, which is a public broadcast message where they're basically reporting to each other where they're located and also to the ground. And a website called FlightAware actually has made it pretty easy to get started with all this stuff, and you can essentially send that data to them, and they obviously use it to make money. But I figured, hey, let's collect this data and then try to do something with it. So I got a Raspberry Pi off Amazon for $35. I got the FlightAware dongle Pro Stick and a filter for $35. What it's doing is it's actually picking up the 1090 megahertz radio broadcast that they send out over ADS-B over an antenna that I just put at my house, and basically I pick up these aircraft that fly overhead, going all the way out to Pittsburgh and all the way up to New York and down to Newport News and up to Scranton, PA.
Is that all direct RF link from the airplanes in those locations?
Mhm.
Because of their altitude? They
Yep,
can,
yep. So the green ones are flying around 40,000 feet. The blue ones are all around, or I take that back. The green ones are within 15,000 feet. The purple ones are at 40,000 feet. The blue ones are at 30 to 36,000 feet. The yellow ones and the pink ones are all pretty close to landing. And so they're all over there. They're constantly flying overhead. I actually used this data a little bit to create a very simple JSON report. You can't really see it there, but this is actually real time. Right now, there's 176 planes overhead over our area, and what it's doing is it's constantly pulling this data. And I use this bit of Python here, running on the Raspberry Pi to actually collect the data from the web interface that they have that has a little JSON endpoint. I copy that down and save it to Amazon S3. And I'm constantly doing that every 30 seconds or so. And I think right now I've got about each of those JSON files are like 32 kilobytes in size, and I have around 15 gigs now of data. This was back a year ago when I did this. I had when I ran this little test against the data.
Do you have an example of the data? Are those examples of the data that the Pi actually captures?
So right here is an example. So it'll report the number of messages that particular section received.
And that's the ADSB standardized format?
No, that is the JSON format that the web interface
From
of
what it
PiWare
gets.
has. Yeah,
Okay.
it has a time of now and then a list of aircraft that give its latitude, the flight number, the vertical acceleration rate, either positive or negative, the number of messages that we've received. I don't know what category is, the longitude, a couple other pieces of information, the altitude obviously. This hex is actually the tail number, so it's actually pretty easy to track the aircraft by this hex value.
Patrick, so you said it was radio transmissions.
Mhm.
So does each radio transmission have like metadata associated with it, so you know which plane it is?
Yeah, that's this right here. So the actual ADSB data that comes across is this.
And so there's an audio because they're like talking, right?
That's a different frequency.
Okay, so this is literally just the metadata
Yes,
transmissions. Okay.
and it's built, as far as I understand, the actual ADSB data is built in such a way that the more of the data that you receive, the more this is defined. So each radio broadcast that's sent, they send, you know,
They're partial updates, I guess.
not even, there are partial updates, but each broadcast that they send includes all this data.
Okay.
But if your receiver doesn't pick it up, it doesn't need to pick up the entire message. It can
Okay.
pick up parts of the message.
And then the next message will get the rest of it. And
Potentially,
so
yeah.
on. Okay.
So you may get a message where you only get maybe the altitude and the hex, and the rest of the message is garbled.
But you still have an identifier of this
That you picked
unique
up.
message, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
later on you maybe get another part of that unique
Right.
message.
Yep.
Okay.
And so that's why when you look at this, like, there's probably a good chance that I'm not picking up all of the data on that plane out there, but I'm getting some of it. And then when you look at all the data that it received over time, it would kind of figure out where it's at.
It's an interesting kind of analog versus digital thing going on there.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. So I did some really simple Python against it. This is that simple. Basically, I wanted to see the number of aircraft that I saw, the average altitude, the highest speed, and the number of messages received, and the average number of messages per aircraft. So that's basically what this Python is just doing. And so in that period of time that I think I only had like 3 months of data, I saw 10,000 aircraft. The average altitude was 38,000 feet. The highest speed was 3,380 miles per hour, which I assume was some sort of government aircraft, some sort of very fast thing. I just left
But
it
you
at that.
didn't show that one with a different icon. They all look like commercial jets.
Well, they do. So yeah, so this little map here, I didn't develop the map. This is part of the PiWare install. It just comes with this web interface. So you can actually, when you start looking at the tail numbers, you can figure out which one are the military aircraft. But I don't want to get into that too much. It's basically, you realize I've looked at this data way too much to be able to just be able to look at a hexadecimal value. This AA is not American Airlines, but it is actually it might be American Airlines. No, FDX, the flight number. You're able to look at the flight number and tell which it is. But the AA is.
Is it hexadecimal you said? So there's AA is obviously that's a hexadecimal.
Well, sorry, it's not hexadecimal in the sense of this is just a unique identifier.
Okay.
They call it a hex.
Okay, got it.
The total number of messages. So this was really interesting. This is how you realize what I think is really interesting about these Raspberry Pi IoT devices they all realize, as you were mentioning there a few minutes ago, we're all connecting them to the cloud. So you have all these sensors out there collecting all this data, sending it to the cloud, because the individual sensor may not be able to process all the data itself. When you actually realize that this thing collected 100,000 million, 10 billion messages in the amount of time that it was collecting, it collected 10 billion. And that was maybe a month or two into this project. So we're probably in the trillion or quadrillion range of messages that it's received by now. And that's one little Raspberry Pi that's received that many messages.
Where are you storing the data? Like,
S3, Amazon S3.
do you find that that's like price-wise?
It's only 15 gigabytes of storage right
It's
now.
like pennies probably.
It's
Okay.
well within the amount of money that I get from Amazon for just saying Amazon on a regular basis. No, it's like 5 cents.
Because I've been collecting data for like a day, and that generated like 4 kilobytes.
Yeah.
No, like 4 megabytes.
Okay.
So for over like a year, that'll be like a gig.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, penny.
Yeah.
Like Amazon
It's-
S3 is like, it's mind-boggling.
It's
how cheap.
2.5 cents per gigabyte.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm well within. I could set up 100 more of these and still not have any data. The hard part, where it's going to cost money, is actually processing the data, which is my next blog post, is trying to use something like Apache Spark or something to now, because this was super easy to do when I only had maybe 300 megabytes of data. Now that I have 15 gigabytes of data, trying to process billions of messages is going to be a lot. Now, when I say number of messages, I apologize, I misspoke. This isn't the total number of messages that I process. This is the total number of messages that the Pi processed to be able to create the data set. So it's not that it's 10 billion messages in this data set. It really it's 10 billion messages to show the activity of those 10,000 aircraft.
But the Pi was processing them only a few at a time as it was receiving them in a serial fashion, right?
Yes.
And then sending them onto your database.
Well, it's not. It's so.
There wasn't any
The-
storage being done on the Pi itself,
It's not
except local.
storing. It's not storing
temporarily.
each 10 billion. It's
Right.
not storing 10 billion
Right.
messages. I'm only storing a snapshot every 30 seconds of the location of the aircraft that they currently are. In that period of time, that 30-second snapshot, it may be processed 10 million messages.
And the Pi is then taking that snapshot, which is the 32 kilobyte thing that you're sending on to your
Saving it
S3
to
store.
S3. Correct. Yep.
Okay.
I then did some other little pieces of data using some pretty simple Python, like GeoPy distance. So I was able to see that.
Can you make that a little bit bigger?
So
Um,
you could actually, given those different snapshots, you could potentially chart flight paths as well, right?
Yes. And so I don't have it here. Give me 1 second. If I had it with me, this this map here, if you were to click on one of those aircraft, it would show the path. Actually, I do have it. I'll show you that in a second.
And by the way, so Patrick went in a lot of depth about this at Python Frederick, so he's doing a little demo here, but if you're interested in watching like full scope of this, we have a recording online on YouTube. You can search for Python Frederick. There's a playlist that has videos, and that recording is there.
It's,
So
if you Google Python Frederick SDR, that's it. So with this little simple Python here, I was able to show that within 5 miles of my receiver, I saw about 7,600 positions. Between 5 and 30 miles, I saw 130,000 positions. Between 30 and 100, I saw 850,000. And I saw positions out past 200 miles. In fact, let me see if
What are the mile ranges again? That's
200 miles, 100.
is that vertical? That's not vertical distance. That's
Laterally.
how far away they were from your Pi.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
But the ones you saw 200 miles out would have to have been at very high altitude.
Yes.
Because of the line of sight nature of the
So one of the
frequency
things
that you're
I'm
listing on.
working on right now is being able to show basically where all these aircraft were, and you will more often than not only see the aircraft in purple and blue out further. And you very rarely see anything out past Johnstown and Pittsburgh because I'm blocked by the mountains. I have seen, I'll see if I can find, I don't want to take up any.
So you can see them even out to sea from here, but going west toward the mountains, it's
Yeah.
different.
I'll see if I can find the pictures. I don't want to take up too much more time. But I was able to, when I pushed all this data, I pushed all of the data into Elasticsearch, and I was able to plot it all. I saw aircraft all the way up into Ottawa and down into South Carolina.
What kind of antenna were you using?
It's this, it's a little 1090 megahertz,
Okay.
just slightly above the position of my house. It's still slightly below, just so that if lightning were to strike in that area, it would strike my house and not the antenna. But it has pretty clear line of sight to 99% of the sky.
That's got to be a pretty high gain antenna, because that's way longer than a quarter wavelength.
It's so what it's really getting is this antenna is built for 1090 megahertz, which is the frequency range that they broadcast on. I then also have this filter, which is a 1090 megahertz filter, and then this dongle is tuned specifically to 1090 megahertz. Like, this is as clear of the only thing this will pick up is 1090 megahertz.
So you got a bandpass filter on top of a high gain antenna on top of a lot of processing there too.
Yeah, and so it's, I mean, it's, as you can see, it's, I'll see if I can find the pictures here shortly. I pushed all 15 some odd gigs, and I even went so far, I started actually just advertising the fact that I have this data. As of December 4th, 2018, I had 10 plus gigabytes and collected over 400,000 individual collections. And the data, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's JSON, and it shows you all the aircraft information on it.
The JSON format gives you all sorts of possibilities to process it later on. So
Yeah.
very cool.
It was fun. I'm working on it now to kind of see what else you can get out of it. My boss's boss's boss flies from North Carolina to what's it, the Columbia area every week, and I picked. He surreptitiously gave me his tail number, and we were able to see that my things picked it up.
If you could you could probably take those data and, like you were saying earlier, do like a graphic, great circle path of each of the.
I posted it, I think, to our Slack channel. I'll pull up the pictures here if I can find them. Basically, I put in all couple of 10 million some odd, however, entries that I've picked up, and I was able to even see in the short period of time frame that I threw in there for one day an aircraft that flew from JFK down to Florida and then back from Florida to JFK. It flew from JFK to Florida at 10 a.m. and then flew back at 11 p.m. And you could see that it flew through our area and then back. The time frames between it. It was pretty crazy.
If you guys want to, I can show you my emulator.
I would love to do that.
Downloaded a couple.
Come on up. Bring your project. Does it have HDMI output? Can you put it on the projector? That'd be super.
Yeah, this is my ticket minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a PyTop, and if you're not familiar with the PyTop company, they're an amazing company. They got one of the world's best support that I've ever.
Oh, that's very similar to the keyboard thing that Tim brought, and that's sort of like you have the Pi inside it.
I think it was a PyTop
that Tim had. Yeah, Tim couldn't be here. He had other things going on. He wasn't able to. He said, "I'll have to defer till next time." So he's still working on building his weather station. So hopefully next year we'll get to see that.
Okay, well, that will be fun. So do you guys meet here a lot, or
we meet here every first Saturday of the month at 10 o'clock in this building. So
cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and then is there a place to put this for power?
USB power. I don't have.
I can obviously switch it out for a bigger.
Do we have a longer I don't have a USB. You know what we need is somebody with a phone charger.
Android.
And a longer USB cable than that.
This This is so it just sticks to here, so it doesn't.
Oh, okay. But what do you need? Do you need? What are you needing then? Not a phone charger. What do you need?
Well, I just need to stick this into.
Like a battery
power.
pack or something?
Oh, that might work.
This is.
Will that work?
Yep.
Okay, there you go. That'll be at least long enough for your demo.
Okay. And let me check.
I'm gonna,
We can move this over here, I think.
okay, I'm gonna temporarily swing the camera over to it so people can see what it is.
Okay. So I can just pop this whole thing out.
And this is called the Pi Top again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And,
called Python. Gotta pop this whole thing over here. Just to-
oh, all right, sure, right there. Very cool.
Okay. So
Okay, that's the device we're working on. And so now you've got, okay, let me swing this. Okay, he's booting up this. Okay, that's the system. And let's see, get back over onto the. Now what's showing here is what's on that Pi device we just had the camera on. So this is the web interface from the Pi device.
So that is just, I think it's called a splash screen or something like that.
Okay.
And I can download multiple of those on my Raspberry Pi and choose which one to show.
Those who have a Pi will recognize the raspberries on the top of the boot up screen.
Yep.
It's got, this one's got 4 of them. It's serious.
I do like the PS1 splash screen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this program, it's called RetroPie, if anyone's heard of it, and
Yep.
it runs something called Emulator Station, and you can actually get that on a few devices. But this right here, I can take this off.
Do you need to get to the keyboard?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it's stuck on the.
Yeah. So right here, I'm going.
And you use ROMs of games you have purchased yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Or
Unless there is a website that you can actually get them, and they said they
As a legal disclaimer, I
Legal,
would advise
yeah.
ROMs that you have purchased yourself.
Not allowed to download what's on
We were talking about that yesterday, actually.
yeah. This wire is so hard to unplug. Well, I can plug it. If I plug it in here, I can just access it right here. But yeah, this is my keyboard to play some computer games on here. Like this RetroPie also has games that you can download directly on it, but normally I just download them with the web, and as you can see here, it actually works. It's not just for display or anything. So, if I were, has anyone heard of the game called Bomberman?
Yes.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay.
Let's see if I can get this out of there.
Okay. So let's see. I'm gonna go to ports, enter, and then here's Bomberman. Now, if anyone's seen this old computer game, it's awesome because you can do everything you normally can do. So I think this goes up to 5 players. You obviously need to get a bigger selection of keyboards and stuff like that to play this with multiple people. But as you can see, it is I think it's the original computer game that you can get.
Do you have a gamepad you play with, or you just do keyboard?
No, keyboard. That's what you do. Okay. And yeah, it's actually a really fun computer console you can play with. And I'm obviously not gonna play with it right now, but you know, you can exit out of this. And yeah, these computer games that you can get on here, they make it easier to exit. But normally you'd have to have like a PS3, PS4 controller, or you know, Xbox controller. And I can control it, but you have to customize it for this RetroPie. So I can invert like any controls that I want to on PS4, PS3, Xbox controller, or the game controller, that's what I'm gonna call it. And then I can play all sorts of games. So, right here, I've got, PS and PlayStation 1 games. I've got RetroPie, that's just the settings and stuff like that where you can download extra games and stuff like that. Then you got Super Nintendo, for those who love Super
Dreamcast has that Debian looking logo on it.
Yep. And then there's N64. Everyone loves N64, obviously, right? And then Nintendo DS. I was lucky to come upon that. Yeah. Got Nintendo Entertainment System, and of course, like I said. So, yeah, those are all the stuff I can get on here. And I enjoyed this project. And basically, what I did to get more games on, what most people choose is they get a flash drive. And they download all their ROMs onto that flash drive. And then they go onto their Raspberry Pi, and, hook it up and everything, and then they'll have all their games on the flash drive. And flash drives don't easily break, right? And that makes it safe. But you can also, the way I choose, because I didn't want to have to spend extra money for a flash drive, I actually just, bought a SD card and put everything into it. And how I did that with the ROMs is I went into connect to server, if anyone's heard of that, probably. So you just, on here, what you do is you go to RetroPie and hit enter, or whatever that button you customize to enter is. And then you show IP, and here it will just show you the IP, and it's just pretty cool. Yeah, it shows you your IP, and then you can just hit OK. And now I'm not connected to Wi-Fi, so I can't use the IP or anything like that. But this system makes it easy to play all the classic games that you'd want to play at home, but you don't have the money to buy an emulator, and you probably just have a Raspberry Pi sitting there, never touched. But yeah, this is my presentation.
Joel, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I see that there's the RetroArch net play. Have you tried playing any games over the network with anyone else?
No, because I have no friends that have Raspberry Pi.
All right, fair enough.
But if anyone would like to get on
fun to try.
if anyone wants to get on there with me, I can obviously try that out with you. But just get an extra SD card, download it off the website, and you're almost ready to go. Just connect it to the network. Get my contact information. Don't hack it, and then you're gonna send me the IP and everything. So. But yeah, I can actually just go up to that. So
I didn't know if you had any buddies that you.
Oh yeah, and this right here, Easy Hacks Toolkit. So this is just an downloaded setting because I wanted to get some extra little things on here. So this just makes it easier to fix all these different stuff. Now this just has a long list of all this stuff you can get on it. But I'm talking about that right now. So
This is Game Genie trick question.
But yeah, NetPlay, all you really have to do is set it up, and then you can play with your friends or anything. And, I completely forgot about this really cool thing you can do on this. So, not only can you play your old games on there, but when those, tough moments in Super Mario Brothers, you so close to dying, and you don't want to die, because then you're going to go all the way back to the beginning and have to restart. Well, for those who like that, you can actually save slates in here by hitting the hot button, or whatever it's called, and it's basically just like a hack button. You hold that, and then click whatever key you want to. Normally, if you set up the controller the way it tells you to, it's command and then the top. It would be a triangle on a PS controller, and then something else on the Xbox controller. Just the top button. But I like it on the left because it just kind of makes it easier for me. But anyway, you can save slots, you can download cheats, and generate these really cool stuff. It's amazing. I love it because you know, my dad's just like sitting there on Mario on his classic emulator thingy, and he paid like $80 to get that, and I'm like sitting here with $35, and I've got everything I need. But yeah, so yeah, you just for Retro Arch NetPlay, you just set up the host and client, the set port, all that stuff. I think you can leave the set port, okay, and then yeah, just make sure to copy all that down, and you can play with your friends or anything. So yeah, it's a pretty nice feature and stuff like that, and yeah, I enjoyed using it, and yeah. And also, something to note is this does have a little bit of Raspbian installed into it. And if you only have like a couple of SD cards and you don't want to waste anything, you can actually get this to run on Raspbian itself. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. Any more questions?
Does the Nintendo side have a sight bike?
Yes.
What? Oh yes. It's sight bike.
So
Doesn't it?
What was the question?
does it have Excite Bike?
Yeah.
Oh, the game.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't have it downloaded because I had a little bit of trouble running it earlier, but I did download it a while ago.
It's the greatest game of all time.
I agree.
Yeah, I've heard
I
about
don't
that.
think so high that you come back up through the bottom.
But yeah, this is the RetroPie. Totally recommend using it, and don't get those those things that like those boxes with one type of game system on it. One, you can get any of your favorite controllers, connect it, and bam, you can literally get an N64 controller and connect it on here. Or even better, you can actually get your old-fashioned Nintendo classic controller. It's really cool and totally recommend trying it.
Be careful what you say there. Classic Nintendo controller. There's a couple of us that was just the Nintendo controller.
Okay, well, yeah, that's true. But like Nintendo, I wish they would just keep one controller, but they have to go through this N64 controller, classic controller, whatever. I don't really care. I just have a PS4 controller and I can play anything.
We all know that the Super Nintendo controller was the peak of controller buttons. So.
Yeah, the 4 buttons necessary.
That's right. And a D-pad. That's it.
Yes. Those are the controls necessary for playing the best of the games. Yeah. Any more questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else? I have the pihole to demo. Does anybody else have another? I think we've covered all of them, or have we not? Have I overlooked anything? Well, I'll hook up my Pi with the pihole on it, and the only thing is, if I use my laptop, we may lose the streaming when I do it, like happened to me last month. But I'll first start with hooking up to the projector. So.
How much of the recording did you get last month streaming?
Nothing.
Oh, nothing?
Nothing. However, what you told me about editing last month, I learned how to do.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
So I know what to do. So that was a worthy conversation.
This is
But I lost everything, and I don't know what
classic.
happened.
Sorry,
this is a classic
I was
Palm charger.
Hey, I'm Chris Swing.
Nice.
Sorry I'm so late. I'm studying for a test. I was down at the Starbucks and I said, what's the Linux? I live in Montgomery Village. I just went to meet up. I said, what's this Linux Frederick group that I'm part of? I've never attended a meeting, and I just saw you were having one today, so I was like, I better scoot over here and show my face once. So
Well, glad you
I'll
did.
start coming to these.
Well, we got one demo left to go. This is our annual Pi show and tell. We put it in March because 3/14 Pi Day, even though we never do it on.
I got one sitting on a bookshelf that I've never configured. I just bought it, so I
Oh.
was like, this would be kind of cool.
Well,
Just
well,
sitting there.
actually, it is configured. Like you might have seen on his menu, the raspbian config. You can execute that from the command line on a Pi, and I might show that on this one too. So What I brought was Raspberry Pi. Here in the- so let me get this set up. Maybe Diego, you could explain what the pihole is while I'm working on this, because you'll probably explain it much better than I.
Yeah, I mean it's a you can call it an ad blocker or content blocker.
It's also a malware blocker too.
It does malware. It does ads. It can also do like adult sites, or if you could set it up to block certain categories. Like if you have like alcohol and tobacco, for example, you want to be able to filter that out of the house. So any website that contains certain keywords, it'll actually block it. You could put custom websites that you want to block as well. For me, at my house it's a game that my kids play called Roblox. So I would set it up so at certain times of the day it would block the Roblox, and even if they're playing, it would just block it, and they would get a
the timed blockage for specific things.
So just a specific time frame. I love the way it displays the because it has a lot of data, a lot of graphics, and it's really easy to set up. I mean, anyone can just take a look and set it up. It's one of my favorite projects.
Okay, maybe not my Grammy, but me.
If you could go to a website and you know how to read, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to, because it's very simple to.
It's beautiful. It's a little bash script just to install it, and you normally don't want to trust an installed bash script.
No.
But you can view it. I went through it before I ran it, just to be sure. Security conscious.
Just download it.
And
then execute it yourself locally instead.
Oh, that does not sound.
Okay.
Execute locally. That just doesn't sound very pleasant.
I'm not gonna. If I can't hook up.
The cool thing about this is my office is very lit.
I don't know why. I've got to get to this. I don't know. I've got to get this battery. The battery has to go into this wireless keyboard.
So, question: are we just doing Are we talking about Raspberry Pi just for today, or is there other days?
No, this is a special day. We talk about the actual hardware. It doesn't mean you can't talk about. You can only talk about Raspberry Pi on this one day. No, that's not. But this is the point of showing like the hardware devices. We bring the Pi devices in. To actually work with them. It's hardware oriented, and you do different things with basically IoT oriented. So I call it Pi Day, but it could be, we talked about Arduinos. Matt displayed the little circular thing. I forget what you called it.
Gemma.
The Gemma
and the little. Actually, you were talking about just lighting up tennis shoes and stuff like that. I was thinking there's probably some actual. I don't want to call them practical, but real world applications that you could integrate with a Pi, like a Pi cluster you were talking about earlier. That could be like you have a Pi and a number of those other little things around doing different things as sensors or something like that. There are all kinds of possibilities.
So, Jill, to answer your question, this is the Linux user group, and just generally cover Linux-related
So
software.
yeah, Raspberry Pi is technically Linux.
Yeah, it is. So
it's like
like next month we're talking about a piece of software that makes it so you can set up servers on web servers on the cloud. Like,
That doesn't. I don't know.
I'm
Let me try something else. I'm going to try to SSH into it.
About having topics available well in advance. So if you're on, if you go to Meetup.
I don't know why I can't get this keyboard.
KeyLUG, so this is called.
Do you know the keyboard, or is it?
I can't get the battery into the.
Key is in like Frederick.
I don't know why.
Which is KeyLUG. Yeah, but you can search for if you can search for Reddit.
It takes two batteries. One. Oh, it just worked.
Good.
You'll find it.
Because.
Upcoming event, so
But it's not supposed to go that way. It's supposed to go that way. Now it's stuck.
software focused.
See, it's supposed to go. The positive is supposed to be up front.
You have a negative there?
And I put it in backwards, and it went in. Why? I don't know.
Usually batteries don't take that, aren't so hard to.
I know. But in the meantime, what did I do?
Phillips screwdriver? Do you have a small Phillips? Like, you probably, that might loosen it enough that
I
it'll
don't,
slide
but I
out.
bet these guys around here. Here's a.
I need something smaller. Like
I know what you mean. I don't have it with me. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, this whole door. Okay, you can just take off.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see what you're getting at. I see
Yeah.
what you're getting at.
This whole piece.
Right. Not working out.
I don't want to bang it too hard.
No. I'll worry about that when I get home with it. But
Do you need a keyboard?
I need a wireless keyboard.
Anyone have like a small Phillips screwdriver?
Why do you need a wireless keyboard?
Because all I needed it for was to check the IP address on the Pi. I think I know what the IP address is.
Does it connect to Wi-Fi automatically?
What?
Does it connect to Wi-Fi automatically?
No, I didn't bring the Wi-Fi. No, it does not have Wi-Fi embedded. I have a USB Wi-Fi, but I have the very light load of the Raspbian on it, which was a dumb move on my part because.
What I mean, if it connects to the internet, then you can go to the routers page and then you can see the IP of all devices connected. And then
I'm going to connect it directly to my computer and talk to it on a local.
Can you do like SSH Pi at local Raspberry Pi? That should SSH.
But I need to get, yeah, but
No,
I,
no IP required.
say again?
No IP required. It's SSH Pi at Raspberry Pi.local and it should.
But I need a way to talk to the device. If I,
That's what I'm saying. SSH Pi at Raspberry Pi.local and that will SSH local.
but I don't have, but I'm not on the local LAN. Okay, we're missing, you're trying to say something I'm missing because the,
Crossing what his issue is not having, you have no physical.
Right.
You're waiting for your physical.
Yes. This is an older Pi.
Yeah.
I'm playing video. I'm not paying attention.
Okay. So what I'm saying, when I connected to this device, it was via SSH without Wi-Fi.
But
And I didn't know it's like.
you're missing the layer 2 part of it. There's no layer 1 for a layer 2 to go on to.
Can you connect to it?
What?
Can you connect to the device?
Yes, via Ethernet. Local.
Maybe a USB?
I could, but
What he should be working.
USB
You can SSH via USB.
on an older Pi. Okay, I've
That's what I
never.
was saying.
I never.
Solve your.
Oh, all right. I don't have a to A USB, but if I don't know what the if it doesn't have the IP address that I think it has, then maybe. Okay, let's find out. We'll find out here. Hold on a second.
Now, if you go into the router, you can see if it's there. So.
Okay, well, hold on here. I'll let you guys see what I've got on my terminal, and we can go from that. Where's my HDMI? It's over here.
I've got the keyboard out if you want to.
Well, okay, we'll see. You've got it. You've got it.
Can't you connect it with?
With what?
Can you connect it with this?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Probably so.
Probably so, but
Plugged into the USB.
but if I
Get your
can.
keyboard working. Here.
Oh, awesome.
Where's the door though?
It's somewhere.
Okay.
I'm not worried about that. Okay, let's put the HDMI onto the Pi for a minute. No, thank you for that. That probably would work, but he's got this one working. Okay, now.
I saw you guys with all. I saw all those wired things. I'm like, oh my gosh, is this like your experiments?
All right, now let's see. Now, why is my Pi not showing up? I'm going to reboot it. Ah, there we go. Okay, now, all I need this for really
It's
is the.
less important. It's only one raspberry.
Yeah, I know. It's look. He's got 4 raspberries on his Raspberry Pi. I only have 1, so you know who it rates.
No, I thought that shows you how many CPUs
Yeah.
are on it.
Is that what it is?
I thought the number
I didn't know
of
that.
raspberries is the number of
I heard it was
CPUs.
like tied to which one. Like, yeah, I think you're right though. 4 to.
It's
This
how
what's
many,
it?
How many CPUs it has available, or maybe cores. Might be cores.
I think it's the cores.
The cores. Oh, this is a much. This is an old. By the way, I used to use this as my main pihole, but it ran very hot.
My IP address 169.
Do you need a?
Oh, you can read from that far back? Wow. Where do you see that?
Down there. We'll keep going down.
Superman.
There we go. There we go. My IP.
Oh, it's an all right, unassigned address.
Yeah.
Yeah, 169.
Yeah, that's it.
Plug it into your
Trouble is, I don't think I could. My machine has a good. All right, we'll fix that.
Huh. Here you go. Learning experience for everyone.
What's that?
Here you go. Remember how? So you see the Raspberry Pis on that?
Yeah. Oh, this one.
Did you know that it also does it for the Linux Tux Penguin?
Oh,
really?
Oh, I have seen things where you have 2 Tux Penguins on there.
These indicate both on the Raspberry Pi and the Tux Penguin number of processor cores detected by the kernel.
Don't you have to type in Pi and then raspberry?
Yes, you do. But what I need to do is
every day.
I need to assign an address on an address this one can see.
Funny.
So
Raspberry didn't come up with
the username, the default username is Pi,
Yeah.
and the Raspberry is the
Made the connection.
Password.
With the Raspberry Pi, neither were like.
is the password.
I'm still at base.
And I'm going to become root because I need to.
Just Google
My
it.
nick is just a little.
Sudo ls.
I don't have a Pepsi.
Okay, is that a?
Oh no, it's sudo.
I have a. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Don't you type in like?
Okay, help me with some syntax here. I think it'll use the old ifconfig.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the
ifconfig.
press enter.
Say again.
Press enter.
Say again.
Enter. And then you can see the name of the interface. So you ifconfig.
Oh, I see what you mean.
IP netmask, and you have to do it as a sudo. So it will like tab complete for you. It will be the one.
I'm trying to find it.
It will be the first one.
Oh my God, I can't read that.
Can I help you?
Yes, could you please help me with that? Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead. You could probably take the keyboard.
There is. It's down that restroom down that hall.
Right down there.
No, if you need it, I have a whole monitor. If you guys want to use that.
Well, no, well, this is
Oh,
on
it
the.
doesn't have that complete.
You can get closer if you need to.
Give
Put it on the LAN address, anything, give it a, oh, yeah, okay.
Awesome. So I'm working through that now. So my book is called Crafting and
God, that's
Fiber Online.
Cool.
So it kind of runs through making
All the slides.
two versions
It's
of
what?
the same
All the
programming
slides.
language, but one is
We normally cover up this, but it was a darker day and I made the decision not to crawl up on the wet, rainy roof to try to put,
Cover over.
starting next month, we probably will start covering this up.
What will we do if we need light?
No, it's only this
and
one.
then does it again.
Oh, okay. Then that
And the only reason we're covering it up is to not wash out the screen, that's the only reason it's there.
Well, yeah, I can obviously bring them on.
Okay, let me try,
I'm gonna try and go through those. And then I've got in my head like a language that I feel like I want to design something that's Python-like. That'll just be a fun experiment.
Let me get over here, you move over.
It's like that's so much fun.
E and X?
We did a
Oh,
there you
oh.
go.
Yeah.
No, I'm too far.
Yeah. She actually has macros and everything. It's a full list. We ended up realizing
You missed the max.
macros at runtime is slow, so we
Sorry.
now implemented those like ahead of time.
I think to have you still go all the way through.
The next one we wrote, we did H4. network. Basically like essentially. So with that one, we have a lot more sophistication in the pilot, where we actually generate like jump instructions and things like that.
Let's give it 192.168.2. Yes, dash 24. That you got dash 24. You're right there. Okay. It is dash 24. Okay, that's all I need that keyboard for. Okay.
You could have used this idea.
Pretty cool.
Anyways,
The-
that's fine.
No, my computer's not on that.
You can change the IP and add more IPs.
I've done that. I just didn't want to do that because I've added so many already on this one. I really have, and I didn't want to mess up my IP on this machine. That's the only reason.
That's all good.
Okay, now I should be able to.
What's your IP? We can ping it from here too.
SSH. No, you won't be able to because the Pi can't talk. Yes, you should be able to. That's right. Okay. Pi at 192.168.2. What did I say? 25.
It makes you think through all sorts of stuff. Like I've been thinking about error handlers. Like Python does exceptions.
No, right here.
What's your IP?
Yeah, there are upsides and downsides to it. So it's like.
Hook it up.
The functional approach is like just type of
You could use.
CSS value or an error value. We do that with a lot of our sharp code.
But I can,
Hmm,
so
mine
this,
is here.
this camera, I can hook it up to
Yeah.
your
So I am like the result
That?
type in Rust.
Result type, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I wanna, but I was thinking like.
Okay, so you have 10
Rust is able to
more.
use that because it has compilation steps.
Yeah,
So
that's
we know
not.
it is
That's not right.
10
That's the Wi-Fi though. That's going to go through the Wi-Fi.
so what interface is this?
This is this one right here.
Okay, just send yourself an IP then.
that has a result type.
Yeah, I thought that's interesting. Okay. I thought I had. That's interesting.
You get a result type.
They're going to be verified. Like it's going to check.
Right. Well, that makes me wonder.
Okay, what do you
If you issue, so let's say
yeah,
parallel
and
buses of the code.
10,
And you want
oh no,
to
192, 168,
you have to
something.
have some sort of logic in there so that if it didn't handle both and like it exits the function.
Oh, hold on a
order,
second.
you can do
A
both
little
times.
simple matter here.
AST analysis don't necessarily need types per se, but like
Yeah.
if you don't have a structure that handles both cases, both branches of one error and success, then it flags that region of the code and say you
Okay,
can handle
now.
that.
Yeah.
Right, so
So
it's
they'll
like-
do that with the thing,
Like the runtime cost of doing that kind of check.
Okay, there we go. Now I should be able to.
you have the AST, you know the spots that you need to return a result because there's a failure case, and you can say that case needs to be handled here, or potentially defer it, and then you just need to walk up the tree and make sure at some point that is explicitly going to pay.
Right. So it seemed like
Oh.
if I could make a
No route to host. That's not right.
Python is
Maybe I'm not going to do it.
indented languages kind of thing. So I have in my head like a Python-like thing that.
We said 25, didn't we?
exceptions uses
Okay.
a result kind of thing.
In our work,
I would think that the.
basically there's like a bunch of different stages, like from the kind of visual format, we have a like direct code representation, basic representation of that. We then translate that in a number of different steps, and then basically I think we check the last stage, we actually have heard all the types,
Why
so
would
we
that
actually know all of these
recognize it and go straight to it? It's supposed to know whether or not it's talking to it.
They can then check
You
if,
ping the gateway,
you know,
Now,
I don't have a gateway. I'm hooking it directly to it.
plugging in, the Raspberry Pi is plugged into what?
My laptop.
trying to store.
Oh, the Ethernet for the?
Yeah, direct
oh, I see.
Ethernet.
Okay, I
I
got
was thinking that they'll see each other, and I don't
If they're
think
on the
you
same
shouldn't have to
subnet-
have a modem cable or
Are they in
anything.
the same subnet?
They are now.
You have to look at structure.
Dude, can you
say
just-
this structure does not handle the
Yeah.
result or whatever.
You shouldn't have to add
So
a
that is
default
interesting,
gateway.
because, like,
oh yeah,
don't have.
Yeah, you should.
yeah, I was gonna use his to route to myself, but I can't even ping. Can you go up a little bit?
Like, is there
What do you need me to do?
Like go to the first interface. So that's a local. So this is the web. Can you go down?
Closure.
Okay, so this is virtual.
That's
so it's
virtual. This-
three-
this is the
that's for
wireless.
wireless. It's gotta be down
Well,
low.
we
I don't have this. That's it. That's all there is.
It's obviously dynamic language and
Yep, Python has this option.
192, 168.
That's what I just gave this one, and it is a /24.
You can it'll validate and types and then run it through tools that will validate.
The problem is I can't show the web interface if I can't talk to the Pi.
And this is the same is true in like Erlang.
From
here,
here, can you ping the Pi?
No.
Okay, can you try to SSH again?
Try what?
To SSH again?
To do what again?
SSH again.
Oh, sure.
The integrity of your type checking.
Yeah.
Do that.
Microworker West.
Ooh, there we go. What'd you do?
That piece, it's fine, it's working.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. And a passphrase key for. Oh, that's right.
He's always like, so if you have any Rust questions, I can connect you with them right now.
Okay.
He's one of the ways he got into the project was working at making advertisements better because they were confusing at first. They're better than they were, and they're working a lot to make things better.
Rust error messages are pretty sharp.
I actually ran into an error that was pretty confusing when I was playing with Rust, and just looked at it and was like, I'm going to open an issue for that. So he actually opened an issue to
Diego,
No, they're from here.
what's
So
PFN?
I was-
For the job.
Yeah, but when I came.
Pure freaking magic.
I came from
I figured it was a little sense.
No.
So I'll let you know if I start streaming language development.
I'm following on Twitter. I should add notify me of every tweet here
That's what I have.
for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do it right now.
Can you do that?
Yeah, if you go into them and it like there's a little bell and you can see plus notify of any tweet. I have that for like Mark Seaman and Michael Feathers and
Okay. Just a handful of people that are like, I want to keep microphone.
and you're up there.
Yeah, I really only use Twitter to talk about technical stuff, generally.
It's a classic phone charger.
It's a great little way to get a quick update. I don't even get on
Probably-
really.
that charger's
anymore,
probably older
but,
than
like,
you are.
It
There's so
figures
much-
out you might be interested in this.
There's a lot of garbage on there, which is like, God, but I
Oh,
love it
that was-
native.
That was Patrick's.
Yeah.
Okay.
No
I
route to
love Twitter
host
because
again.
That's where the networking for people are, and they're having really good conversations on there.
Is
get
there a
to it.
But at the
closer
same time,
power
it's like-
source I can get?
That's where a lot of
Gary, I
You
lost
get to
I
it?
lost it again.
mad
It
about
doesn't see it.
stuff is the
No, why do you consider it?
Hmm.
I think that's
There's also toxicity
everything in general.
I guess, right?
It's because it has DHCP enabled and it's getting a new one. Trying to get a new IP.
It's getting a new
Yeah,
IP
so
Extra.
What's that?
cool.
Oh.
The first real Rust program I've written, I wrote it a couple weeks ago. and it
Do to that one. Do to this whatever you want, because I'm,
that
you know.
can type
You're trying to
SVG
mock me
into,
just
and
the
it
charger I need to charge my
types
batteries.
out PNG. And it's using like, I'm using SVG, Rust crate that like wraps Cairo.
you should be able to connect now.
Okay, to go into it now?
Yeah.
Ooh, cool. Okay, great. Now, let me try this.
As you said, it's hacked again. I need to know, but it works. It's cool.
I'm always one of these, like, I give that opinion a lot of like,
Yeah.
I'm not proud of it.
No, that's true.
I'm not saying that's how you feel about it, but,
I feel like
where folks don't wanna admit.
No, you're just
don't wanna
SSHing into
feel
it?
like, "Ah, it's not ready."
Can you
I
do
don't know,
just
maybe
from
it's
here?
I've maintained enough open.
Oh, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm into it.
Don't care about it, like, I put my first commit, it's like, alright, this is going up to GitHub, right now.
Fat fingered raspberry.
Whether it's garbage or not.
I have a really high standard for when I publish anything, and probably that's because I always work
Three.
in like enterprise.
All right.
This has to be like.
Okay, we're into the pie.
I'm not gonna push it until.
That's what I need. Thank you, Gary.
Beautiful.
And so I'm SSH to the Pi. There it is. Now that's all I need to bring up at 125. So let me bring up a browser, and I'm gonna turn the the projector back onto my computer. And I wrote down the temporary web. Come on, Chrome, open up here. Okay.
Problems we're trying to solve.
And if we needed to do the,
Charts on the server side.
okay,
Like,
now,
email and
Oop.
give, like a graph or
Now.
chart or something without using
Okay.
Node.js. Such a painful constraint with Node.js. Like, but like CD is.
this gonna want. Oh, okay. Now I'm gonna switch the. Now we're talking to the Pi. Yay, we're talking to the Pi. So now. Okay, this is the Raspberry Pi that's here that I brought. And so let me double check to make sure that I got. Yeah, my gosh, I'm still streaming. I don't know what happened the other month, last month. I really don't know what happened last month. What's that?
Like the last portion, technical difficulties.
Okay. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about that so much. Let's, okay, here's the, it wants you to log in as admin. That's fine. I'll go into admin panel. So here we go. Here's my Pi. And I'm going to log in. And they don't take a user ID for the Pi. This is the pihole admin screen. Let me put in this password. WX HV. I didn't bother to change it because okay, this is what you get. When you see the Raspberry, when you log into the admin panel on the Raspberry Pi, and what it's going to show you is the queries for the last 24 hours. And I'll say what that is up here. It says this is the total DNS queries that you've made, and of these, the ones that are blue underneath it, it will show underneath it the ones that are blocked. And so it gives you a history of what it's looked at. Now, this is a history from the other day. This thing's not online. It's just local, so it's not going to get any new data. So this is old data from another day. Just to get some blocked things in there, I tried to make it go to doubleclick.net, which is an ad-serving network, and this is going to block it. So that's the reason I wanted to show what you're getting here. It shows domains on the block list, 112,000 of them. And the percent blocked at this point, when I had it online, was just those double-click things, which is 2% of. Normally at the stuff, like if you go to something like Amazon.com or any of the news sites or anything like that, it's going to block like a quarter of the IP addresses it tries to call.
How much bandwidth do you save, do you think,
probably a lot. Probably a lot, and no small portion of that, the DNS queries themselves, because the Pi hole is going to block those in the first place. So I'm logged in. Let me look at the log, show you about the log. Well, of course, it gives you these nice little graphics, which you see. I mean, like if you're in AWS, you see similar kinds of things like this, or if you're in any kind of orchestration, thing, it'll show you stuff like that, like OpenShift and that sort of thing. A plug for next month's presentation on Ansible, the orchestration playbook that we're going to be talking about that next month. But it gives you all your bunch of stats here. Now let's look at the real stuff here. The query log is this up here, and I look at this a lot. So a lot of it does its time checking. So it's going to look at the Debian pool net time protocol thing. So the Pi is going to be up to date on its time. But I'm looking for what's been blocked. So let me go find one where I was hoping to show. Somewhere in here I've got a bunch of, where are my double click ones here?
Mark, can I ask?
Yeah, ask whatever you want, I'll try to answer.
In your network configuration, what side of things does this sit on? Does this sit between, like if you have Comcast at your house and you get a Comcast box, does it sit between your Comcast box and a Wi-Fi router, or is it on, where do you install this thing, I guess?
Good question. thank you for, it should have clarified that. We should have clarified that in the beginning. This is a DNS server. It's a local DNS server, domain name system server. Where it sits on your network anywhere in your local LAN's network space. You make it, you want to give it a static address outside your normal DHCP scope inside your house or your business, so that the Pi will have an address that's static. And then on each of your machines, and also it's a DHCP server too. So it makes it, it serves up, I let the Pi be a DHCP server. I tell it the scope, so I have I have another, my main router, I have one of those Ubiquiti edge router things, so that's a DHCP server too. And I have another DHCP server on one of my Linux machines, which I never took the service off because back when I was playing with Pixie booting. So I got 3 scopes of DHCP in my house, depending on what your whatever device you have hits first. But the pihole is a DHCP server. The DHCP server, of course, it's going to serve up and appoint itself as your DNS server. I also have some backup DNS servers, so if anything happens to the Pi, in configurations, I think my second choice is Quad 9, and then my third choice is OpenDNS, but it could be anything you want. But so let me further answer more completely answer what you brought up. Imagine your network is just the Pi-hole device just sits within your LAN network space. So if you're just a standard home router Class C network space, 192.168, whatever, it's going to be a /24, 254 addresses or whatever. You give the Pi one of those addresses that's not in any DHCP scope of any DHCP server you have running in your house. The Pi itself is a DHCP server, so you need to tell it in its configurations what its scope is, and I think we can show that in the settings here too. We can take a look at it. So what you do, you tell your so if the Pi is the only DHCP server in the house, which it perfectly could be, you could make its scope be whatever, anything that gets a DHCP address will be from the Pi, and the Pi-hole will give it itself as a DNS server.
And that would be treating it as the gateway.
And that would be what?
That would be treating it as the gateway, essentially.
Eventually it would, but it's not the actual gateway, because that's going to be your router. Your router is going to be the gateway. So your gateway IP is going to be the .1 or whatever you would have. The Pi needs to be something else, separate from that. But it needs to be outside a DHCP scope so it can have a static address.
Is the Pi doing the Wi-Fi in the house, or like you have a Wi-Fi router that you figure look at the Pi?
You still need an AP, I guess. You still need a Wi-Fi.
The Pi is not. Okay, that's another good question to point out. The Pi's function is solely as a DHCP server. It's a piece of hardware. You really don't want it to be connecting through your Wi-Fi access point. You really want it to have it hardwired for speed and reliability and latency and all that kind of thing, and less hackability and all that kind of thing. So it could be, so on your LAN you've got the Pi-hole, DHCP, and DNS server. So what we're looking here is what it's doing DNS-wise. And any other DHCP servers that you have, you want them to be pointing to the Pi too. The way I fix that is on my router, which also has DHCP information, it does DHCP, the DNS assignment that it gives in the DHCP assignment is your DNS. If you get a DHCP address from the router or from the Pi-hole or from the other machine I have in the house, all of them tell you to go to the Pi as your DNS server.
You can configure that on the router.
You can figure that on the router, absolutely.
So in your configuration, couldn't I bypass Pi-hole filtering for just pointing to the main router instead of you?
No, if you point to the main router and you have the main router is going to say, if you get a DHCP address from the main router, I have the main router configured so that if you get DHCP information from the main router, it's going to say, here's your IP address and here's your DNS server, which happens to be the pihole.
So I have a question.
So there are two things. There are two things you have to configure. Three things you have to configure. One is the main router to assign the main router's DHCP. Any DHCP you have that's running in your main router, you have to have it say besides the IP address, you have to say your DNS server is the pihole, and that's going to be whatever address you have given the pihole.
Clients. So now when your machines.
And that would work more transparently, so you don't have to configure it on all your devices.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. So you make it into DHCP. The DHCP so everything you've got, it gets its IP address. DHCP server is going to give the IP assignment and the DNS assignment, and that you have your main router configured, DHCP server in your main router configured to assign the Pi's IP address as the DNS server.
Or you could just turn it off. Turn off the DHCP server on the router.
You could do that too. I think Pi-hole wants you to do that. I don't want to do that. That's just my choice. Maybe I'm trying to make it more difficult.
That's the way I set it up at home because my Verizon gateway doesn't let me assign a different DNS server. DHCP server. It wants itself to be the DHCP. So I just turned the servers off and use the Pi as the.
And it'll let you turn it off. It just won't let you change it, and then you turn it.
Yeah.
I think it gets more information about every client.
Yeah.
If it's on.
So like laptop connects to Wi-Fi. But we're not going through the Pi-hole for the Wi-Fi.
No.
The Pi-hole gets a static IP and plugs directly into the router. You configure the router to use the Pi-hole as the DNS.
Well, no.
You
configure the DHCP scope.
It tells you the IP address of the Pi-hole to use as your DNS server.
Like, so when you turn your laptop on, it goes up and it asks for a DHCP server, and the only thing that replies is the Pi-hole or the router. Doesn't matter. When you get that IP address, that's your DNS server. You get that the Pi-hole is the DNS server at the same time. So now every time you want to make a query, you're going through the Pi-hole now.
Does it also track IPs, not just domain names?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Does Pi-hole also track IPs, not just the domain name?
The DNS works on domain names. That's the whole point of the. So it's
something that is going out your traffic. You don't want to.
If you did a dig that's a good question. I've never tested that theory. I suspect that you could do an NS lookup or a dig for a specific. Well, wait a minute. You couldn't with the Pi-hole because you would have to already know the IP address. Because if you try to NS lookup or dig a specific domain name, Pi-hole's going to see that domain name and stop it.
Well, what if let's imagine this weird scenario where a website, instead of using doubleclick.net or whatever the DNS is, they actually in the request that was going to go out used an IP address that happened to be the doubleclick.net IP.
And that's a variation of that's a good variation of his question.
I'm just like trying to ask it a different way, like.
You know,
same question, but it wouldn't be able to block that, right?
No.
I don't think it'd be because DNS is
Because there's no NS. There's no
Pi-hole is DNS. DNS is DNS names.
So somebody was really nefarious, or just being kind of mean. They could make their web server configure rather than point to DNS name, they could know.
The only problem with that is that the ad server could then no longer ever have other than a static IP address.
Right.
So the web server administrator who's doing that would have to keep up with that, or else you wouldn't get the ads.
It wouldn't work for DoubleClick because that IP address, since it's DoubleClick, I think is still owned by Google. They're going to be looking for that DoubleClick host name. Otherwise, it's going to fail at the load balancer at the front of that.
Oh, true.
Can you just block certain websites for a device, just one device?
Yes.
You could choose that, and it would block certain things. And how would you block certain websites for this amount of time, and and then, you know, have it allowed for this amount of time and then block. Or in another way, you could can you make it so that if you spend this amount of time on this certain web page, it will kick you off or something?
No, time-based, you can't, no, not like that.
Oh.
I'm not familiar with the
No, you
timing
can't. I mean,
or time point,
So,
time range.
I just used cron to put an entry on the host file for those websites from this time to this time, and then remove it for whatever period of time. The pihole has a command line that you can add your own domains, and or remove, add or remove, so you can edit the list of the
You can do it from, I haven't tried doing it from the command line. I know that the web interface has the ability
Yeah,
to
you can
change.
do it.
Like if you go into the query log, it'll show you, you can whitelist or blacklist something if you want to. Not the Debian.
So you used cron to implement, you know, period of time to disable that variable.
But it's trying to reach out.
Go take a shower time.
Yeah, right.
Have to
Stop playing video game time.
Yes.
You're
You can
right.
apply like Xbox or whatever, and
Yeah.
you won't be able to get on
Yeah.
Xbox or anything like that. So yeah, you can do all that stuff.
I've got this thing
That's
set up.
why this is my favorite part.
Can Pihole do actual
There you go.
filtering?
There's a whitelist. You can choose to whitelist or
Yes.
blacklist something, you know, from a particular. You would never want to block a NTP server, but I mean, this is just what, you know, this is the only. It lost the data I had before.
It's all like a man in the middle that you trust.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
Basically,
You're
yes.
man in the middle, yeah.
You are the man in the middle.
Yeah.
You are the man in the middle. I'm the man.
That would be an article with get people's attention. I am the man in the middle. You know, Go look at me.
The
You
man in the middle is
know?
on my side.
Or that too. Yeah. Yeah.
Does Pihole, does it point to anything to update its?
Yes. Yes. I don't think I can show it here, but you can update. There are a couple of command line things on it. You can say
Somebody somewhere is maintaining its list.
absolutely.
on
There
GitHub.
It's in a GitHub repo, yeah.
Okay.
and it has a. If
It
you
blocks
tell.
Ring.
There are two things it updates itself. It's engine and its database. It's called the database gravity for some reason. I don't know why. But there's also the engine, and they call this lookup thing faster than lightning. This guy's into something. If you do an update, it'll say neutrino emissions detected. You know, because it's like we're putting it into a black hole and there are neutrinos supposedly detected, you know, outside of a black hole. Therefore, this is a black hole. It's there. We're detecting neutrino. It's kind of, you know,
Are
geeky.
there ways to bypass this? I'm wondering because.
Yes, yes, there is. You can bypass it by. Oh, I've unplugged you. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I thought I unplugged myself. Yes, you can. All you need to do is in your main house router, say the DNS server is whatever you want it to be. You know, something else, your ISPs or Google, 8.8.8.8, for example. And therefore, it will go out to Google now from henceforth, you know, for DNS lookups, and you'll get all the ads that are, you know, unless you have uBlock Origin. But also there's it's, you know, we talk about ads and stuff, and of course I know that's kind of a discussion. A lot of websites are ad supported, and the more people do this, that business model is going to start to diminish, and so that you're talking about an effect on the economy here. But you know, I already subscribe to a couple of things myself, and I'd rather do that, but you know. It's is that fair for someone who can't afford to do that? You know, that's
I
all.
don't like the it searches for certain words and then blocks the page, because there are certain websites that I need to access, and because of, I think it's the routine that makes her, you know, have you heard of Circle? Yeah.
That's a good thing to clarify. Pihole does not do blocking based on term search terms. It doesn't work that way. A search engine, that would be at the search engine level, which is basically a much higher level than DNS is operating on. The only
It might
way
block you from clicking on.
it would block you from clicking.
Results from that
The way that would work is you would go to Google or wherever, you would search for something, and if you didn't have restrictive Google, search things, I don't. I just, and you clicked on something, and that's happened to me. I've said, I want this looks like this has the information I'm looking for. And I click on it, and Pi-hole tells me that Pi-hole has blocked this.
Ring.com.
What's that?
Is it a Pi-hole
Ring.com.
error page?
It blocks ring.com.
Does it?
So.
Is it a Pi-hole error? Like, do you know it's the Pi-hole is blocking it, or is
Yes,
it like not?
yes, it will be a tiny, what I've seen, the Pi-hole I have, it's a tiny little thing up in the screen. You could read it, the Raspberry Pi thing, the Pi-hole has blocked this.
Okay.
Now, you can go into the admin like this and say, I want to whitelist this manually inside my Pi-hole. And when you do the updates on your Pi-hole, it's pi-up will update the Pi-hole engine, and pi-g will update the database, what he calls gravity, Yeah, I know, it's
So when it updates, because you said it updates a lot, is there a way to stop it from updating, or will it always do that? And how do you change settings and stuff like that on Pi-hole? Do you have to sign into something, or can anyone just go to the website and tamper?
Okay, that Diego can help me on this a little bit, I think. But look, I have found with my Pi-hole installation, I thought I was just a clever guy. I did a cron job every morning. I had my Pi-hole update itself, and then I found that the cron job died for some I don't know why, and I had it as a root cron and all that kind of thing. And so now every day, every morning, I run a little script of mine as sudo to do the Pi-hole -up and Pi-hole -g. And so if I don't, it's not automatic. In other words, it never was automatic. What it will do is, if you're in, down here at the bottom, you probably can't read it in the back, but it says Pi-hole version such and such, web interface version such and such, FTL version, which is faster than lightning. Again, this guy is interesting here. Version such and such. If you are not updated when you're on your Pi knows. It's like, you've got Adobe Reader, for example, will say, hey, you have an update. The Pi-hole does the same thing. It calls home to their database. Now, by the way, Patrick, they pull their data from Amazon S3 shares because they got a whole bunch of S3 shares. They got this stuff in. It'll say it in red or whatever. This is updated, but it's not updated. It hasn't been done automatically. It's just telling you that. I am not aware, Diego, unless you're aware, how to make it do automatically.
There's an update available, but you have to go in and say update your system.
It's manually.
That's the manual update.
Yeah,
So,
but I feel like since it's a website, it kind of should update
So
manually.
you need to know something about, look
You
at
have
the
to do
website.
it on the Raspberry.
Yeah, if you look at the URL he's got there, it's 192.168.2.25. That means it is literally, it's not really a website, it's talking to that little computer that has an IP address. That's what's going on there.
yeah, you go to this just like you would the web interface for your home router, basically. But the thing of it is, the answer of what I think it's an important point that you brought up. Pi-hole that I know of and confirmed from Diego, it does not automatically update itself. You have to manually check. I do it daily, and I found that maybe every 3 or 4 days it has an update. I also check for the raspbian update. So I have a little script that, I have apt update, the raspbian, and then I have the Pi-hole update things in it. I do everything. So I found that Raspbian usually has an update for something. Does it matter to me? I don't know, but I want the security updates from the upstream Linux too. Because it's all based on, you don't want somebody hacking your Pi-hole. That would be very bad.
Is it easy to hack? Can you just go
It shouldn't be, because you're sitting behind a NAT router, and the only way I know of that you could hack something behind a NAT router is to have something come in, either one, have a port that's open, that's forwarded to that, and yeah, it could be found, you know, probably Shodan would find it, if somebody hacker wanted to find it. Why would you ever in your mind port forward something to your Pi-hole? You would never do that. And the only other way is if you, and since like Matt pointed out, this is a local, is to get hacked from behind a NAT firewall.
You could have a compromised router.
You could have a compromised router, and that's the only other way, is to go in and through web surfing, you know, pull something in that in turn from your machine goes in and underneath compromises your router. But your router would have to be compromised somehow. First of all, you're certainly not ever going to have, nobody here has, you know, an unchanged admin password on your home router, do you? You don't. Of course you don't.
You could very easily, I probably do, have like old firmware on my router that.
And that's something we,
Who knows
you know,
whether my firmware has been exploited or not. So it may not matter whether I have a non-admin password. Like,
well, that's true too. And you know, I know that I update my router firmware sporadically, because like you just kind of indicated, you don't think about it every day.
Yeah.
And so, you know, maybe I'll go home and update it today, or check to see if there is an update. Sometimes there isn't.
S in IoT is security, right?
Yeah. That was well said. I don't, Diego, is there something in this interface that you want to show people?
You can show them is that the database? Oh, that's the audit log.
That's the audit log. Where's it? You mean the query log? No. What do you?
Where all the
Where do I find it? I know there's a white list, black list.
You take that class though.
So if you go to settings.
Settings, okay.
My big takeaway is that this stuff is hard, and you're pretty much always.
Okay.
Can you access this from like the internet?
Can I access what?
Can you access this from an iPhone?
This group, he's not here.
Or
Yeah, it's just a web.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. If your iPhone has an IP address on your local network that the Pi-hole is on.
Will.
Okay. Here's the block list here.
Unless you're Will.
I'm trying.
So those are the sources where it gets the database, the actual host files.
Oh, all right. Okay.
So those are all the sources. So you can add your own if you have one.
Oh, all right. This is a feature I had not explored.
Does it download those?
It gets this. Right.
Somebody really bad wants my stuff.
I have a feeling this is where it's pulling when it goes to when you do the Pi-hole update.
Yeah, exactly.
It's saying for the Amazon S3, this, and this. It's pulling from that.
So this is
You know,
from
so
GitHub,
yeah.
from malware domains, and
Yeah.
if you could actually click on that and it'll open it if you have it in there on your laptop.
I don't. All right. Let me see if Zeus tracker abuse. I guess I can get that, huh?
Yeah.
Let me copy the link address and go into a different tab. My machine is on the Wi-Fi, so I should be able to do that.
You're staring at it.
There we go.
That's the whole.
Okay, this is what the data looks like, and it is like a host. It is a host file. It's basically a host file. The only thing is the difference between that and doing the somebody who cares, and maybe I'll look up that too, but it's the same thing. It's just a host file. The difference is the people running the Pi-hole project do the legwork of looking this up and updating it. So, okay, Matt, I'm going to look up somebody who cares just because you brought it up, because
What is this anyway? Somebody who cares?
it's I'll show it. You'll see it when I find it.
No idea.
The Paul McCartney lyrics. Oh boy.
You need to add the host name after you choose.
Right. Right.
There you go.
See, Google knows what it is. using somebody, here it is, or somebody here who cares.org. It's kind of an ugly website. It's just text. But I mean, they have other things you could download. It's just, that's it.
Oh gosh. Oh.
There you go.
Oh.
So you just download the file. And
There's that guy's name, I guess. But you can get it in text form and all sorts of other stuff.
okay.
But he does the same thing. He got all these comments into.
What is this anyway? What are you doing with this?
What you're doing, this is what you put in your Etsy hosts.
Etsy
And-
host?
Right, yeah. And all it's doing is pointing it to your local address. There's no web server at your local address. There better not be, unless you intentionally put one there, which you could. You might have a use case for it. But usually, if you have, say, I used to use an RSS feed generator. I forget what it was called, List Garden or something, and it had a web interface to do that with. And you ran this web server on your local host, but it went to a particular port. It didn't go to 80. It went to 655. I forget what it was, you know. But this is that. It's the same thing. This is just a host file thing. And so
if you didn't want to have a pihole device on one of these, I would imagine that any device.
before the days of Pi-hole, this is what I did. And actually, I credit my wife with discovering it. You know, she's not really geeky, but she looks for stuff like she says, "Oh, there's this thing called Pi-hole." I say, "Really? Ha ha ha!" You know, and I started to read it and I said, "Wait a minute, what? Really?" I looked at it. Really? I have a Pi, you know, and so I put it on this machine. By the way, I have a different Pi at home running this. If you look at the temperature of this thing, 49.2 degrees Celsius. Well, that's like 150 degrees Fahrenheit or something. That thing's hot. That thing gets really, really hot. But that's my older Pi that doesn't have, the later models, you know, were more efficient internally. There you go. So, I'm sorry?
Fan blowing on there?
I have a fan on the one I'm actually running. And I had a fan on this one. But I knew that I knew I wasn't going to fry it. I didn't expect that I would fry it with the short time that I would be using it here. That's the only reason. So what are any other questions about it? You see what it's doing. I'm sorry about all the configuration issues, but so, okay, Diego, do you have anything further to add on it? Would you recommend a Pi-hole?
Absolutely. Anyone.
There you have it.
I'm excited to go try this.
It's worthy.
Stuff on our phones when we can't go Wi-Fi.
Let me go just real briefly find the website here.
Yeah, it beats spending $100 to get a circle.
Well, that's true. Pi-hole. Here's their website. And Matt, I will be trying the video editing tool today. That's for sure.
Pi-hole, network-wide ad blocking.
Right. It's not just ad blocking, remember. It's malware also. Remember, they have the Zeus tracker. Right. And so, but actually, I have donated to them because I think they're worthy of it. But anyway, it won't what?
It's not going to protect you very long.
Why is that?
Once people start realizing that domain generation algorithms are super easy to write, Pi-hole won't help you.
Well, it's an arm. That would be an arms race. Well, they already are. I mean, hackers and are using, spammers are using like these random generated domain names. They've been doing that for years.
You have to buy those domains.
Yeah,
you do.
They buy them super cheap.
They're just finding it that the return on investment is worth their while to do this.
Just block .ru and you'll be fine.
I guess it's maybe a little.
Or CN.
It's a little bit like.
Anything not US.
It's almost like the inverse of Tor, where Tor is good if both the cybersecurity community or the intelligence community and other people are using it. The more people that use this, the more of an arms race there is. If there's just a few of us using it, so don't tell anybody about this.
That's very true.
Don't get me wrong. I love the Pi-hole.
That is correct. That is true.
It's
Well,
It's
because
really starting to
there's
get
also
scary.
like there's the challenge of this is not this is not something you just plug into your router at home and you're done. Because if it was like that level,
No.
then
So
that's
well,
a
companies would have a real problem.
I
with it.
really
Because
advise
like,
people-
hey, I can get faster